Welcome back to the Can't Stop Talking podcast. In this episode, you are getting my IG live that is repurposed into a podcast. It is how to talk to the person who is ready to whip out their credit card and buy whatever offer you're selling. This changed the absolute game for me and my clients. This language, and you guys know I don't gatekeep, I give you the exact wording I use on my stories and my posts everywhere to really get those people who are like, I'm ready for this. And this will change everything in your business. Halfway through the live, the sound goes out. And so I have to pause and regroup and do a new live. So if you hear that there's part one, part two, that is a why. And it's really funny because that Pilates class I was going to, I ended up being 7 minutes late and the door was closed. So I drove 30 minutes there and back for no Pilates. So I think that's just Mercury retrograde. Anyways, sit back, listen to the episode. I hope you really enjoy. And if you do, I'm doing a content masterclass Wednesday, May 17th at 11 a.m. in the membership. It's only $25 a month, but I am going to go even deeper on how to create that content that gets your ideal clients in. So I love you so much and enjoy the podcast. Hello, my loves. In this live, we're going to talk about how to speak to the person who is ready to literally whip out their credit card and buy from you. And this all comes down to messaging. We're in we're in my living room. I cleaned and I just wanted you guys to kind of see the palm trees today. Enjoy this vibe. Hello, everyone. So we are going to talk about how to speak to the person who is ready to buy, right? And I wasn't doing this for a while. And I was also attracting people who just weren't ideal clients, weren't action takers, weren't people who, ready to really make a change. Oh, beautiful like you. Thank you, Mila. Okay, so we're going to get right into it today. It's going to be a very, very juicy live. I'll probably make this into a podcast as well. But basically, your Instagram is like a dating app. Period. I'm on fire today. I made so many notes. This is going to be so good. I can't wait to talk about it. But your Instagram is a dating app, but for finding the right soulmate client. And so if something's not converting, if you're not finding the right people, you just don't have the right profile in place. Yes, I love your podcast. Thank you, Hannah. And so what's happening, and this actually happened to me with my dating life as well, with my Hinge. And I went from not getting ideal dates or not getting asked on dates to the right type of person who was ready for what I wanted. And it was the same change that I do in my marketing to attract clients. And so it's so funny. I'm listening. Yes, I'm trying, not finding. Yes, exactly. So what happened? First, we're going to talk about my metaphor for basically the dating apps, but how this goes into your actual profile, your Instagram, to attract the people. And we're going to talk about messaging. We're going to talk about your content, and we're going to talk about you, embodiment. So I'm absolutely single, have been since October 2022. I love this. This will also help you with your Hinge or whatever dating app. So how I realized that I was attracting the wrong people is because I was getting people who were ghosting me, who didn't have enough money, who weren't quite ready. And if they did have money and they were ready, if they ended up in the container, they actually weren't taking action and they didn't feel like easy soulmate clients. And what I realized is that my messaging was off. And so this is the same thing that happened with dating, you guys. I had prompts that weren't really going anywhere, right? And it wasn't until I changed my prompts on my Hinge that I exploded and had so many dates. And it had nothing to do with my pictures or anything else. I literally changed the prompts. And so what I did is I laid out the characteristics of who I wanted to go on a date with. Just like you are going to lay out the characteristics of who you want in your containers and in your program. And that is the person who is ready, right? So on my Hinge profile, I changed my prompts to, looking for someone who's forward and goes after what they want. Now, who do I get in my inbox, right? In my Hinge, I get people who say, I want to go on a date. You're looking for someone who's forward. I want you. I want to go on a date with you. My other prompt, best way to ask me out. I'm telling them legit the best way to ask me out name a date and time. I will get messages like, let me take you to the steakhouse at 8 p.m., right? Cut to the chase. I'm telling them what I want, and so I'm getting that type of person. The next thing I did on my, Hinge profile dating, and then we're going to go into how to attract your soulmate client, but I said what I was looking for. I was looking for, instead of just, a one night stand, I was looking for a life partner. So I told them the characteristics, what I wanted, how I wanted them to ask me out, and what I was looking for. We are going to do the same thing in this live to attract your ready to buy ideal clients. I love this. Yes. Ask what you deserve, want, I statement. Absolutely, Mila. So when you are talking to the person who's ready to buy, what are the characteristics of that person? Well, they are ready, right? So it starts with having a story up, and you could just literally write, she's ready, right? What does that look like? She's committed to her goals, right? She's ready to make a change in her life. She's done with everything that she's done in the past, and she's ready for new. Are you speaking, actually using the words, she's ready, right? Are you using those words? Yes, Hannah commented, ready. Thanks, Queen, of course. So are you actually talking to the woman who's ready? Ask yourself that. Or is your content just saying like, it's for the woman who desires this, which is still great, but we want to talk to the person who's like, I'm done with where I was and I'm ready for a change. I am ready to invest. I'm ready to be a go-getter, right? What are the characteristics of someone who moves, someone who actually invests in themselves? Yes, Melinda, ready. The characteristics of someone who actually moves is what, right? They move on their dreams. They take action. They're a go-getter. She moves and implements. She'll do whatever it takes. You can use these exact wording in your own content. Take it. I'm giving it to you for your messaging to attract in those people who are like, I'm going to make a change. Yes, Mila said, I'm so effing ready. Exactly. I'm ready to show up for myself. Exactly. When you are talking like that, you are going to attract those people in who feel the same way. They're going to say, wait, she's talking to me. I'm the type who moves. I'm the type who implements. I'm the type who invests in myself and gets results. And I'm the type who takes action. And you can go even further painting the picture with this. Let me explain even further. So what does that person look like in their day to day? Paint this picture. She wakes up and she does her morning routine. That's someone who, takes action. She wakes up and does her morning routine. She makes her bed in the morning and then she Voxers her clients. Like, you can literally paint the picture of what this person looks like, does, sounds like, acts like every morning. How does she present herself, right? She'll do whatever it takes to get to her next level. You can literally use this exact wording, and that's what's going to change the game. Just like I did it on my Hinge profile, you start doing this in your messaging on your Instagram profile, and you're going to get those people who say, she's talking to me. On my Hinge profile, I was talking to the boy who wasn't ready for something serious. Once I changed that and said, I'm ready to be taken on a date, they took me on a date. Same thing with your audience. Are you talking to the person who's not ready? Once you change that and say, I'm talking to the person who's ready, who implements, who puts her card down, that's what's going to happen. Here's where I was going wrong. So I want to help you guys. I was talking to the woman. I was categorizing myself as the lazy woman, right? And so I was saying that, I'm the type who, I like being handheld. And I still say that in my messaging. I love being handheld, right? And I was saying that I'm the lazy girl. But what was happening, and I said I do things in the easiest way possible. People were taking that statement of the easiest way possible and saying, if it's easy, that means I don't have to take action. And so I wasn't getting action takers. And so when I changed my messaging, I said, we're going to take action in the easiest way possible. Yes, you're going to take a lot of action. I talk about this all the time. I take so much freaking action, but it feels really easy for me. So once I changed that, I realized I started getting those people in who were still taking action. They just wanted the easiest way possible. So before, I was getting those people who want the easy way out, the quick fixes, the cash injection, right? Until I said, wait, no. I built this business. This took work, right? This took me doing the actual action but it was simple. It was easy. Then I started getting people who are like me, who are action takers, but wanted it to feel simple. So that was a huge, I want you guys to see, where in your messaging are you attracting the wrong person, right? Maybe you're doing what I'm doing and saying like it gets to be so freaking simple, but you're not adding that they actually have to take action, right? And so I want you to embody that. I show my clients taking action. I show my audience I'm taking action so that they know when they come into this world, that's what's going to happen. So next, so we talked about basically your messaging, right? Speaking to the woman who's ready. The other thing I wanted to say about messaging is a lot of people say don't use pain points. You can still speak to someone's pain points while bringing them up, while making them ready, right? So what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is, here's an example. She doesn't want to waste any more time daydreaming about her business. She wants to create it. So the pain point is that she's been sitting there just daydreaming and not taking action. And I use that pain point to go into a pleasure point. So she doesn't want to waste any more time daydreaming about her business. She wants to create it. So we can use pain points to fuel them and make them realize they've stayed stuck. So another good idea, maybe this is for the woman who's sick of living the same life on repeat and she's ready to actually create the business of her dreams. You can do this with mindset. You can do this with business. You can do this with any niche. I promise you, it's just talking to that person who's like, I'm all in, I'm ready to change this thing about me. So that's the first part. Speaking to the person who is ready, right? And then characteristics. So back to, like I said, with dating, I put on my profile, this is what I'm looking for. I said, I'm looking for a life partner. I said, I'm looking for someone to Irish exit with me, eat Panda Express on Sundays, binge any show with me, and travel the world. I set the characteristics of the person that I was looking for. I want you to do the same in your messaging for your business. Let me explain. In your business, in your stories, when you are talking about who the program is perfect for, I want you to also talk about who the program isn't perfect for. So for me, it would be like, this isn't for the person who's not ready to take action. This isn't for the person who wants a quick fix. This isn't for the person who wants a quick, cash injection. This isn't for the person who wants a side business. And then below that, I'm going to put, this is for the person who wants to build an empire. This is for the person who wants to take action. This is for the person who would do whatever it takes. Mila says, we could be a perfect match. Wow, look how well my messaging is working. But what I want you guys to see is I am literally painting the picture of who I want, the characteristics. This is what I don't want. This is who I don't want in my program. And this is who I do want. And what's going to happen is your ideal client's going to see that and they're going to go, she's talking to me. Or the person who maybe doesn't take action, isn't ready to move, isn't ready to build an empire, is going to say, that's not for me. I'm going to look for the person who's going to give me the quick action. So it works perfectly. In your stories, do this. Do X. This isn't for the person who, do like 3 X's, and then write, this program is for the person who, and do 3 checks. Works really, really well. So the next thing I want to talk about is embodiment. Show you moving, right? I want you guys to show you moving. So instead of saying to people like, you need to invest, this is why you need to invest. Investing is amazing, right? You're talking to people who don't invest. Instead, I show myself investing. I show myself moving. I talk about all the time, I've invested over 60 grand into myself. And this is what has happened because of it. That's really important. It's not just I invested 60 grand and that's it. It's I've invested 60 grand into myself. And this is what has happened because of it, right? That gets people into being like, wow, she's invested 60 grand, but she's built a 6-figure empire. She has a podcast. She has a membership. She has a signature course and a one-on-one coaching and a mastermind, right? These are, because I invested in myself, this is what came out of it. So I show how I 10x my investment. So people are like, I feel safe. I had my current coach, when she was pitching to me to get into the mastermind, she was like, I have invested 40 grand into masterminds this year. And you know what that did for me? That made me feel safe, because I was investing 10 grand into her mastermind. And that made me say, if she could move that big and get these big of results, I can feel good moving with her. That doesn't mean that you have to, shell out a bunch of money and you always have to be under entrepreneurship. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying when you move, whether big or small, even if you join a membership, something smaller, a masterclass, talk about how you're investing in yourself, how you're moving, and what happens because of that. The embodiment, your clients will watch you move and then decide to move with you. The other thing I do is I show my clients moving, right? Pinned to my profile at the top, I have how my client went from $80,000 in debt to building an empire. In that post, it doesn't say you need to invest in yourself. In that post, it is showing my audience that I had a client invest with me $80,000 in debt, and she was able to get herself out of debt, right? And so what did this do? Hello, my bestie. Hi, Deb. What does this do, right? This isn't me convincing anyone. Okay, we are back. I posted part 1 on my Instagram, and this is part 2 because it went silent at the end. And it's so funny because I feel like I always have Pilates after going live. I have to go in 10 minutes because I have my Pilates class. I feel like that's just a part of my personality now. Gotta go have Pilates right after my live. But anyways, so funny. At the end of the live, you can see me clicking and my eyes change from the filter. I am very honest about the fact that I use filters when I go on this live. So anyone who does, who cares? If you feel more confident with it, if you feel better about showing up, put that damn filter on. I just want to say that. So anyways, back to what I was saying. When I speak to the person, right, who is ready to invest, I was saying that I put up a piece of content. We were talking about content. And I put up a piece of content talking about how my client invested in herself and went from $80,000 in debt into building an empire. In that post, I don't write you need to invest in yourself because, right? I'm just embodying my client invested in herself and she was in $80,000 of debt, and because she invested in herself, she was able to get rid of that debt and build an empire. So I'm not saying this is what you need to do. I'm showing testimonials, social proof, so you can see yourself in my client and say, oh my gosh, if I were to invest too, I could get to the same place, right? And what I do in that pinned post, everyone can go look at my pinned post on my profile. It says how my client went from $80,000 in debt to building an empire. What I did in that post is I talked about the characteristics of her. She takes action, she moves, she implements everything that I said that I'm doing to talk to the person who's ready. Because I give the characteristics of what my client does, then my ideal client's going to come into my inbox, the one who moves, who's ready, who takes action. Just from that post alone, I had 3 people fill out my 1-to-1 coaching application from that post alone because they saw why it was so important to invest in themselves without me saying it's important to invest in yourself, right? I just showed the story. So instead of telling your audience why it's important to invest in yourself, embody it, right? Show when you move, show when you invest in yourself, show the outcome of investing in yourself, show when your clients move and the outcome of them investing in themselves. It's going to change everything. The last thing I wanted to talk about is content, right? So how to create content that gets your ideal client who you want to work with to buy. The content that I want you to create is talking to the characteristics of that person. So for example, I have a piece of content that you guys can go down and look, but it's signs you're about to take off in your business. And I was put an emoji if this is you. And what happened is I gave characteristics of the person who's going to take off in their business, right? I forget what I exactly put in the post. You can go look, but basically it's her mindset's on point. She takes action, right? She shows up and sells every day. What I'm doing is I'm just talking about the characteristics of the person who I want to work with, who's going to take off. The next thing is you can create a post of things I did and didn't do to hit 10K months. Same thing. Things I did to hit 10K months, right? So for example, if I was talking about Mila, I'm back. I love that. if I was talking about me, I created a post that says things I did and didn't do to hit 10K months. I would be like, I didn't sit on my ass, right? I didn't give up every launch. I didn't, skip my workouts because I knew they would be good for my mental health. And then I would say things I did do to hit 10K months. I took crazy action. I invested in myself. I showed up when no one was listening. And so what I'm doing by that post is I'm actually just saying the characteristics of the person who I want to work with. This is what I'm like in my business. If you are also like this, then come into my world and join my offers. So that is how you speak to the woman who is ready to buy. If you're coming in late, you can go watch the part 1 is on my profile. This will be part 2 because my voice cut off at the end. And Mila said, I move forward, never give up. Yes, like-minded people, aligned people, your tribe. Yes. And so I love you guys so much. I gave you the exact wording I would write on my profile. I hope you enjoyed this. A couple things this month. I'm having a content masterclass next week in the membership. If you're not in the membership, what are you doing? Join. It's only $25 a month and it's unbelievable. It's called the Take Action membership for a reason because I want people who take action, right? I also have a Voxer deal with my signature course. So 1 month of Voxer with my signature course. Message me. There's only 2 spots for that. And then I also just have Voxer sprints. So come into my world. I have one-on-one coaching. If you're just like, I want to work with Sam, I don't know which way I want to work with her, come into my DMs and we'll really diagnose the best way for us to work together. But I love you guys so much. Take action. Speak to your ideal client. I'm going to go to Pilates and sweat my little butt off. I love you guys.